The Q2 office report shows rent to be resilient. Does this spell relief for the commercial market? You're watching Savills Shares. Welcome to Savills Shares. Today we have Ashley Swan, Executive Director of Commercial and Industrial at Savills. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay, walk us through the process. Imagine I'm your client and I come to you looking for a new office or industrial space. What happens next?
Well, I like to think that what we do is a little bit more than just here's a space and you take it and you lease it. There's a lot more work that goes into it, from starting to establish the requirement that you have, location, size, there's space work for you. We even engage our workplace team to help with space analysis so that we understand the client's needs. Once we've established that, we are able to sort of go out into the market, do a survey, look at options, and from there shortlist. Of course, it always helps when we get to go out and see real estate, right? Feel it and look at it as opposed to being on a piece of paper. Once we've shortlisted with the client, the next step is to really start the negotiations. And before that, we do a lot of due diligence, do test fits for the client to make sure that they can fit into that space, analyze efficiencies, and also the location. Because at the end of the day, your office or even your industrial space is going to be where your staff are. Are there the amenities that you require, transportation, network, things like that. And then once you've negotiated to the price, the best that you can, we move into documentation. And even from there, we still help our clients to go past beyond the lease documentation, hand it over to the design team, project management to deliver the final office or industrial space.
And usually how long does that whole process take?
Well, it depends. I mean, if we generally put it at about a year, 9 months to a year, depending on size. If you're smaller, maybe it doesn't take as long. But in general, these days, construction, procurement, approvals, it can be easily 6 months to 9 months or even 12. And the bigger you are, the longer you take. So some of our clients, we are starting 2 years before.
Wow. So note to self, always reach out to you
early.
beforehand.
Exactly. It's better to be early than to be rushing.
What are some of the most significant trends currently that is governing Singapore's commercial and industrial sector?
I think at the end of the day, till now, cost containment still remains one of the biggest trends. I think that most occupiers are really conscious about cost, especially in this very uncertain economy. So relocations are thought twice, expansions are thought twice. They go through a lot more study, a lot more due diligence to come up with a decision in terms of their real estate.
Right.
We are seeing a shift away from less backroom operations, a little bit more high-end manufacturing for the industrial market, more technology-based services as well. So those are the kind of trends that we are seeing. But overall, it's all about cost.
So how does rising costs affect the commercial leasing strategy of your clients?
I think it actually affects it quite a bit. At the end of the day, occupiers right now have become very cautious. The uncertainty in the economy and this push, the rising cost, the push for cost containment means that they really have to sort of tick all the boxes in order to spend money in terms of real estate. I.e., if you move, for example, you really need to make sure that there's a reason to move and you're moving without blowing out the cost. I'll give you an example. Reinstatement costs just to make your current office bare has doubled in the last 5 years.
Wow.
It used to be maybe $12, $15 per square foot. It's now $20, $25, $30 per square foot. So all this adds up. And with the current sort of economy and uncertainty, it all adds up to being more risk averse in terms of your strategy.
So that doesn't help the situation, does it? That means that they would rather stay on in the current office space?
What we're seeing is most occupiers, first port of call is let's stay where we are, right? Unless we have this sort of major expansion or they're really looking to upgrade in terms of quality, there really isn't a lot of, they need a good reason to move, right? So first thing is most likely to stay unless there is a real reason to move.
And in the beginning of the year, there was a lot of tariff talk. How has that impacted the market?
We're still going through it, right? We had this initial impact. Everybody sort of stopped doing what they were doing in terms of planning because the uncertainty grew. We have economic uncertainty that has just been supercharged by this tariff talk. Especially in the industrial market, we found that a lot of users who were assessing Singapore, let's say, versus Johor, right? They were leaning towards Johor because costs were much lower. But when the tariff talks came in, they pulled back and said, well, Malaysia 40%, Singapore 10%, maybe Singapore can be considered again. But then with all the delays, and I mean, we're still going through it now, right? I think people have started to move on a little bit and started to assess again. But overall, everybody's moving slowly and cautiously. We've seen a lot more activity or pickup in activity in the last few months. I think people are getting used to it, or maybe even calling bluff to see whether they actually go ahead with the tariffs.
Sounds like a lot of things are still up in the air.
Very much so. The uncertainty is definitely the theme.
The Q2 office vacancy rate fell to about 7%, and the CBD Grade A office rental is pretty resilient.
Yep.
Does this spell optimism for the office landscape? And what factors do you think is driving this trend?
The Singapore office market is a supply story. We really have this lack of supply in the CBD. Singapore, in terms of office, are pushing ahead with a decentralized policy, i.e. trying to get companies to move out of the CBD. So you won't see a lot of new land being released in Marina Bay, for example. So IOI Central Boulevard was the last piece of land that was sort of tendered out, and that was done in 2016. All the new buildings that are being built right now are sort of refurbishments of older buildings. There is, additional GFA that's given to developers to do this, to encourage them to change to maybe more of a mixed-use development. So what we're seeing in the next few years is a lack of supply.
Right.
So while demand may be a bit muted because, as I said, about all the uncertainty, the rental resilience and the low vacancy is because there is this lack of supply.
Right.
And as if you take a building off the market, tenants in that building have to go out and find a new space, right? And in the CBD, without anything. So, for example, right, let's say this year we have Keppel South Central as the new building. Next year it's just Shaw Tower, which is also towards the fringe of the CBD in Beach Road. So I think that's the story that will continue over the next few years. We expect that demand may remain muted, but supply is going to keep the rents at a sort of stable level.
And what's keeping the supply so muted in that sense?
It's just the fact that we are not releasing new greenfield land. And I think it's this idea that we are trying to push occupiers to move out of the CBD to more decentralized. So if you look at the master plan that came out, they're talking about like 2 million square feet of space in Bishan.
Right.
And also more space in Jurong Lake District. Those areas as a sort of our strategy to try and get companies to move out of the CBD area.
Now, in Savills Q2 office report, it shares a paper that suggests that AI's capacity to replace humans at work is delayed.
Mm.
Does that mean that we can all heave a sign of relief, particularly for the office market?
Well, it says delayed, I guess postponed, but never say never, right?
Mm,
I think that, of course, it will mean that the office market will not be, we won't suddenly see this big drop off in terms of roles and in terms of mass
mm,
retrenchments because of this, the progress of AI is slowed down.
mm,
So for the short term, I think it is a sigh of relief, but ultimately, in the medium and longer term, there are going to be challenges in
mm,
terms of the office space. Again, I go back to the supply. If we are not building new and not releasing land,
mm,
it will keep the CBD supply very stable, essentially.
mm,
Even when we see more AI technology taking over roles and maybe replacing actual employees in certain industries.
mm.
Not to say that there won't be other roles that people will take up, just different.
Well, Singapore remains a top destination for office leasing in APAC
Mm,
itself.
yeah.
What set this market apart, and where do you see the greatest growth opportunities?
I think Singapore, as you know, in everything that we do, right, it's stability,
Mm,
right? Even in the office market, rents are not drastically going up or down. Even
mm,
after COVID, we didn't drop off immensely. We've recovered, maybe not all the way, but very close to it. In terms of government policies, it's just all about stability. We have a good banking system, we have good transport network. So, and being a small country, I feel that we have the ability to move people very quickly,
mhm,
staff, we have the talent that people tap on. And of course, the government is also very involved in attracting new business into Singapore.
mm,
So if I were to try to crystal ball it, I think the areas that we are obviously targeting remain um, technology, more towards maybe the AI semiconductor area, R&D for sure.
mm,
We've always sort of wanted to push and be very strong in that area.
mm,
So be it, pharma, bio, just the R&D arena.
mm,
I think other areas, especially on the industrial side. So this is what we're going after. If you look at in terms of Singapore's sort of
mm,
push towards, it really is more on the industrial side of things,
mhm,
advanced manufacturing
mm,
versus sort
mm,
of the lower levels of manufacturing, even logistics. Right, we want higher level of logistics versus just a distribution center, for
mm, mm.
example. So I think those are the growth areas for Singapore, and it's very clear that those are the areas that we are pushing into.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of industrial, this particular sector has been evolving quite rapidly.
Yeah.
What kind of macro trends do you observe in terms of sector demand, such as logistic, data centers, or even advanced manufacturing?
It's this. I feel like in industrial, even in the industrial market, we are going up the scale, right?
Mm,
In
mm,
terms of manufacturing, right? So advanced manufacturing.
mm,
Data centers are very tough. They're a
mm,
very tough area, right? Singapore, they give one or two licenses here and there.
mm,
There's not really a push for data centers because it just consumes a lot of power,
mm,
takes up a lot of land, doesn't employ a lot of people, right? Even in terms of logistics, there is more technology being employed in the logistics area. But we also see an evolution in terms of our high-tech industrial areas.
mm,
Because in line with what we're, sort of looking to push Singapore towards, the facilities that we have on offer
mhm,
in the industrial market, you can see the upgrading of, let's say, a B1 building versus, previously where we had a lot more like flatted factories and things like that.
Are there notable shifts in tenant expectations, such as ESG consideration, that landlord must now prioritize to remain competitive?
I think a lot of them there's a lot of upgrading in terms of their buildings. If you
Mm,
look at some even B2 industrial spaces,
mm,
the lobby looks like an office, right? It's air conditioned. It has co-working areas. They have used older buildings and redeveloped them, refurbished them with new amenities. I think a lot of people who are on Instagram would see the 7 Science Park Drive Genome, where Capital Land has had that sort of church-like concourse area with the wooden sphere, pillars and things like that. So that's a business park space. So upgrading those buildings is one of the sort of tactics or the strategies that these landlords are using to differentiate. But you can see, even for like I said, even for B2 spaces, there is an upgrade in terms of the building quality. Things like even some industrial buildings have floor to ceiling windows, right? Because they are moving away from that sort of, process manufacturing with a lot of waste and, chemical pollutants, and going to more high-end, cleaner activities.
So they've basically glammed it up.
Pretty much, yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you and your team mitigate risk then for corporate clients navigating these markets at this point in time?
For us, how we advise our clients is, to mitigate sort of these risks is we are trying to insert as much flexibility in leases. The thing is that real estate is not like the stock market. You can go in and out, within a minute, for example, right? You go in, you sign a lease, it could be 3, 5, 10 years. So in order to sort of mitigate the risk, we try very hard to sort of help occupiers have more flexibility in those leases, the ability to sublease, for example, or options to take up space as opposed to taking all the space straight off the bat in case you don't grow. I think also being part of that whole process is also understanding the layout of your office. If you have more flexibility, you can, start with, let's say you start with 100 employees and then be able to ramp up to, let's say 120, 150 without actually taking additional space. So do you have that kind of flexibility in your office space? So design is also another way of creating flexibility in leases, creating flexibility for corporate clients. And that is very important in this day and age, right? Because one, who knows? The jobs that you have today may not be around, right? As we said, the AI comes into a factor. Whether or not in like Singapore, where cost is also an issue, whether these functions may move out or whether they stay, that flexibility is very important to mitigate the uncertainty.
Right. Is that why for your department, Savills Commercial and Industrial, go to clients with adjacent BUs like Savills Designs and Savills Project Management to provide that holistic, comprehensive overview and options and flexibility for clients?
No, absolutely. We used to be able to go ourselves, but these days, if we don't, sort of work with our occupier services, right? Workplace, design, project management, as you mentioned. If we don't work with them, we generally are not able to provide a full service for our clients. And they want these things because they need to understand budgets even before they make the decisions. So you got a budget, you got to understand timing, procurement times, supply chain times, design, how much is going to cost you, what can you do. Without them, we are not able to complete all the due diligence that is required for a business case these days. So actually they become really essential.
Right.
Yeah.
Has there been a shift in tenant expectation, particularly for, say, ESG, in terms of considerations that landlord must now prioritize in order to remain competitive?
I would say yes and no. It really depends on the occupier. Some of them have gone streets ahead in terms of sustainability, in terms of requirements for renewable energy. So you do have that level of occupier who requires these things. But I would say that in general, we find that most occupiers are demanding a better quality of uh, environment, and it goes back to, I guess, how their employees also are, right? Maybe before COVID, we all just go to the office and spend 9 to 6 and we don't worry, and then we go home. But I feel like these days, everybody wants a little bit more. They want to be able to go and, I don't know, find a gym close by or easily access food and have different areas within not only the office but the building to be able to do their work, right? So you can go downstairs, go to Sky Garden and sit there and have a discussion. So I think there's changing needs, and you will find that beyond just ESG and sustainability, just having convenient amenities is also very important to occupiers today. So landlords have to upgrade their buildings accordingly, right? I mean, if they don't, then they're going to be left behind because people will take that opportunity to move to a better building. Yeah, which then helps in terms of staff retention, staff attraction, things like that.
Well, in the context of hybrid work and the evolving workplace demands, how do you see the office market transforming over the next few years?
Actually, that's a very interesting question because what we find, especially this year, is that there's more and more companies that have sort of moved away from the hybrid. Hybrid working, which has become very established in the last 5 years, is here to stay, right? First and foremost. So we do, a majority of occupiers, of tenants, of companies have some sort of policy, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, 4 day, that kind of thing. But increasingly, we also see a lot of companies sort of getting their mandatory return to work policies in place. So I think it is going to be a very mixed bag going forward. I foresee that over time, we probably, if you have a hybrid model, it will be established and you will keep going. But we definitely see more staff coming back to the office. Maybe not so much expansion, so more staff can be accommodated in the office space. So I think it will just sort of balance out each other. There will be enough hybrid working and return to the office to sort of keep the sort of market also very resilient.
So what is the outlook for the commercial and industrial landscape in 2026?
Look, I think it's going to be more of the same. That's my feel. I think that in 2026, much like 2025, while we will still have a fair degree of uncertainty, the market will remain fairly stable. For the office market, with the lack of supply going into 2026, even if the demand doesn't increase, our expectation is that, as I explained earlier, the supply is going to really keep the market up and stable, and vacancies probably down. Don't foresee that we will have any big shocks, but I could be completely wrong. But if all else being equal, we expect the market to remain quite stable, and that applies for both the industrial and the commercial arena as well. And even within industrial, if you're talking about logistics or business park, B1 high-tech industrial, high specs, that sort of areas, I think overall we're going to expect it to be pretty stable, maybe inching up a little bit in terms of pricing, in terms of rents. But overall, there's going to be uncertainty that will continue, but the market will show resilience.
Right. Moving on to the personal front, tell us something that most people do not know about Ashley Swan.
I'm actually a very introverted person. Actually, most people know that. I am quite an introverted. You would say introverted extrovert, right? Or extroverted introvert.
I might call you a high-functioning introvert.
Yeah, thank you. That's it. High-functioning introvert. So I think I have to have my alone time to recover from, let's say, the work week or social settings and things like that. So it seems very strange to say because I do a sales role, right? But I do also like my quiet time quite a bit.
Well, I always feel that introverts are actually can be excellent salespeople because they are sensitive and empathetic to their clients. They listen more.
No, that's a good way of saying it. Very positive. Yeah.
All right. Now, given the chance to go back in time and speak to your 21-year-old self, what would you tell him?
This is a hard one because I can't really remember what I was doing at 21. I was just having too much fun, I think.
Yeah.
You know what? I really do think I would just sort of tell him, don't sweat the small stuff, right? Just enjoy the ride. Everything will work out. You'll be fine. Don't stress out. And I would tell him, more importantly, just enjoy everything that comes along, right? Take the punches, deal with the challenges, and enjoy the highs, and work through the lows.
Just be cool.
Yeah, basically. Be patient also. Don't try and force things too much, the wisdom of age, right? You realize that you can be a lot more patient. Don't be so angry about things. Calm down a little bit, that sort of thing. And again, just enjoy it. Enjoy the moment a little bit more. Don't think about the future too much.
Okay.
It should work out, I think if I got that advice at 21, I would have maybe smelt the roses a little bit more. Yeah.
So looking back, is there something that you change your mind and say yes to or no to?
I don't think so. I think you have to. I like to think that I'm up for anything. And if you say no to something, then you miss out. And if you say yes to everything, then maybe you get into a bit of trouble. So I guess you got to balance it out again. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's anything specific. Maybe just rely on my judgment and hope that pulls me through, even now and in the future as well. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Ashley. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jack.
And thank you for joining us as well on Savills Shares. You can catch all the latest episodes of Season 1 and 2 on Spotify as well as YouTube Music. Until the next one, God bless. This podcast is for general information only and should not be taken as professional advice. Savills accept no responsibility or liability for any direct or indirect or any consequential loss from the use of, reference to, or the reliance on this podcast or its content.